Press freedoms are under attack, so's democracy.
I just want to say a couple of things that have been up on Facebook in the last 2 days. First of all, some of you might know a guy called Roger Waters. He's from a group from the 1970s called Pink Floyd.
Yes!
They did a song called Another Brick in the Wall.
Yes!
Roger Waters is up on Facebook, a 1-hour interview over Julian Assange and demanding his release, saying that the British government are nothing but pawns of the Americans and that's why they won't release Julian Assange. They're trying to surround him with COVID victims in the jail, the maximum security jail that he's in, Belmarsh, whatever it is, and that he should not be there. He's never been convicted of any crimes. We all remember how our Prime Minister Scott Morrison last week went to great lengths to explain to us how the political refugee detained in Iran, that woman from Melbourne University, was secretly negotiated for release. That's great. We all remember how ScoMo was forced to support the soccer player from Thailand being released back to Australia after Craig and the rest of the Socceroos intervened on his behalf. There are millions of people around the world standing up for Julian Assange. There's an online petition. If you Google Julian Assange petition, you can join the hundreds of thousands of other Australians who stood up for this courageous journalist who exposed the war crimes in Afghanistan and in Iraq long before the Australian media even thought it was an issue worth exposing. Some of you might realise that the inquiry, 4-year-long inquiry in Afghanistan, found out that our special forces had killed 39 civilians in Afghanistan, murdered women and children and whole families. Shame on them. But the rest of our soldiers should not be punished for the crimes of the few. It's the government, the politicians and the generals who sent Australian soldiers into the 19-year-long Afghanistan conflict. We're still in Afghanistan. We're still killing people there. A media report this week from America said that over 5,000 civilians had died in Afghanistan from American drones. America has drones in 44 countries that drop bombs regularly from little spy craft. 5,000 civilians in Afghanistan were killed. It was Julian Assange that first exposed these war crimes.
Go on, Jeff.
Julian Assange needs release. He's an Australian citizen.
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange now. Why do we have such gutless politicians in this country who cannot call for the release of a journalist who's won over 30 international journalistic awards, including those from Australia? Free Julian Assange now. ScoMo, give us all a Christmas present. Demand the release of Julian Assange. Anthony Albanese and the Labor Party, or whoever the Murdoch press decides will lead our loyal opposition next. Why can't you have the guts to stand up? If Julian Assange dies in jail, surrounded by COVID-positive prisoners in a maximum security hellhole in England, it will be Australia's shame forever. Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange now! Give us a Christmas present, ScoMo. Drop Drop everything else and free Julian Assange.
Just look at all the corruption scandals going on in our country at the moment. We've got the sports rods, all the corruption in the New South Wales government as well, and the Berejiklian, they all get away with it. And this is the exact reason why Assange is in the position that he is. Because he's exposing their crimes and they don't like it. They don't like their little dirty secrets getting exposed, and all the money that they're getting out of our taxpayers' money. It's a goddamn joke. We've got to stand up for Julian Assange and get him out of there. We've got to have all this stuff exposed. It's all in the public's interest. So come on, people. Sign the online petition. Email and ring up your MPs. Demand Julian Assange is released. Expose the corruption of our leaders. It's ridiculous. I've got a gutful of it, I'm sure you have too. It's time for all the people to stand up against it. It's a goddamn joke.
Terrorist act is what they're doing to Julian Assange. The war crime, the ABC and the other masthead media organisations are also complicit. They are done of the problem. Our government is not doing that. They are all complicit. And when the truth is revealed, they will pay.
We have the presence with us of Dr. Rodrigo Acuña. So Rodrigo has been kind enough to join us tonight, and he will be talking to us about the importance of WikiLeaks in Latin America. Dr. Rodrigo Acuña is an independent researcher on Latin America. He is now also the host of Indestructible, a new podcast for Alborada Net. Alborada Net is an independent news service based in the UK. So can we please all welcome Dr. Rodrigo Acuña.
Thank you, Adriana, and thank you and much respect to the courageous activists that have been here requesting, demanding, protesting for the release of WikiLeaks publisher and founder Julian Assange. I come from Chile, I come from Latin America, which has a long history of US interventionism, a long history of coup d'etats, a long history of military coups against leftist or progressive governments that have simply demanded and fought for what many of you here in Australia take absolutely granted: basic healthcare, education, the right to pay your tax and see a certain amount of those taxes invested into social services. For those in Latin America who have fought for those rights, the result has often been extremely bloody. It has resulted in military coups d'etats, and those interventions have continued well into the post-Cold War era. WikiLeaks, or had WikiLeaks been around during the Cold War era, maybe even some of those coups d'etats could have been stopped, or at least the world could have known of the brutality that was taking place. 40,000 disappeared in Argentina, 5,000 killed in Chile, 200,000 murdered in Guatemala by US-backed terror squads. The list goes on and on and on. I used to lecture on this part of Latin American history a few years ago, and I'm still doing research, and I'm still publishing and trying to get published. As I said, WikiLeaks, had they been around, they certainly would have been appreciated by many of us in Latin America. In the post-Cold War era, WikiLeaks has in fact, because they are around, they have been exposing US interventionism in Latin America, in particular in countries such as El Salvador, Nicaragua, Bolivia, Ecuador, Haiti, and Venezuela, which the United States is almost completely obsessed with. In El Salvador, as WikiLeaks has revealed, the United States has been supporting the Arena Party. This was a party of generals in the 1980s, which again ran a very bloody and brutal dictatorship. WikiLeaks has also revealed that these interventions have continued, as I was saying, in the post-Cold War era, intervening in elections and making sure that leftist and progressive governments do not come to power. In El Salvador, they were so concerned once the FMLN came to power, they sent US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in order to pressure the new administration not to ally itself with countries like Venezuela and Cuba. In Nicaragua, the US ambassador sent a cable back to Washington asking for approximately $65 million be funneled to the right-wing opposition within the country. In Ecuador, the same situation is taking place. There, the US Embassy was asking for, again, funds for the opposition and monitoring the situation in terms of how the Rafael Correa administration would interact with the government in the United States. If you haven't seen the interview between Julian Assange and Rafael Correa, the ex-president of Ecuador, I highly recommend that you view it. Just Google Julian Assange, Rafael Correa, Ecuador. In it, Assange asked Correa regarding the interactions and the interventions of the US Embassy. Eventually, Correa expelled one of the US diplomats who he actually accused of being a CIA official, or the chief of the CIA within Ecuador. In 2010, a coup d'etat did take place against the president of Ecuador, supported by the police. The government of Ecuador claimed that the police was receiving funding by the United States, and a Senate inquiry, in fact, documented that foreign intervention had taken place during that short-lived coup d'etat. Now, most of you won't read the details of these events taking place in Latin America. Another coup d'etat in Venezuela, 2002, a short-lived coup d'etat, or a successful coup d'etat in Honduras in 2009. Most of you will just simply read that there was a controversial president and that there were large protests and that the economy was becoming a basket case. And then there was massive protests and the president resigned. When in fact, what often has been taking place has been massive pressure against progressive and leftist administrations that have been trying to challenge US hegemony. As I said before, Venezuela has become the obsession. It's almost impossible to have a sensible discussion on Venezuela. I have a PhD on Venezuela. I've traveled to the country many times. I've lived in the country. And even then, it's difficult to have a sensible discussion on the country with people. People are so brainwashed by the mainstream media. All you hear is that the country's a basket case, falling apart, repression, phony, fake elections. The country is falling apart. Over 5 million Venezuelans have fled the country due to massive US sanctions. Venezuelan oil tankers are being captured in the high seas by the US Navy. Their oil is being sold off. Their ships are being sold off. The economy is completely under siege and the country is collapsing. Read the history of Nicaragua in the 1980s and you will understand why there is a current war, a total war against Venezuela. If you read a little bit more of Latin American history, you should Google an organization called the Organization of American States, the OAS. That body is the body where regional disputes are meant to be resolved. In reality, what happens, or what has happened, is when there is a coup d'etat or there's a crisis, the governments will meet up at the OAS from Canada, the United States, Argentina, Brazil, everyone in the Americas. But the American diplomats are able to lobby, blackmail, pressure all the other Latin American diplomats. And out of 10 times, 8, 9, the United States obtains its political objectives. What Venezuela was doing with progressive governments such as that of Rafael Correa in Ecuador and Evo Morales in Bolivia was to create regional organizations such as the Union of South American Nations, where South American countries could get together and have a discussion about regional issues. Collectively, they would then move towards the OAS, and often the US began to start losing diplomatic battles at the Organization of American States. That's deeply embarrassing for the United States. And WikiLeaks, as I said, has been exposing many of these battles, which to us in Latin America are highly important. As I said at the beginning, I congratulate, I'm even honored to be invited and speak amongst you. The activists here have been, my understanding, they have been here every Friday for many weeks campaigning for Julian Assange's release. Just over a year. Thank you for the clarification. The position of the Australian government is absolutely embarrassing. It is not a crime to publish government documents when human rights are involved. It is not a crime to publish documents when espionage is being exposed. That is a fundamental part of living in a democracy. If you care about democracy, if you care about having factual, accurate information, you will support Julian Assange's release immediately. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You've got the Grim Reaper on the stage.
Chelsea Manning, Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, etc., all thought the public need to know. Oh, look who's arrived. It's the USA Grim Reaper. There's only one decision. Julian Assange! Julian Assange!
Only one decision.
No extradition hearings! The Grim Reaper. We want Julian to hear you in Belmarsh. You need to speak up. Only one decision.
No extradition.
And we want the Grim Reaper to hear. Only one decision.
No extradition.
Free, free.
Julian Assange.
Free.
Julian Assange.
In faith.
Elevate.
Julian Assange. Free Assange.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Help, I need help. The Grim Reaper's coming for me.
Wait. No extradition. No extradition. No extradition. Free the truth.
Free the truth.
messenger. Here comes the Grim Reaper again.
Get away!
Julian
needs our help!
Help! Help! I can beat the Grim Reaper with you. With your support, the Grim Reaper is nothing. Here comes the Grim Reaper. No! Only one decision! Only one decision! Only one decision! Let the Grim Reaper hear you! Only one decision! Let the Grim Reaper hear you! Only one decision! No extradition! No! I read the other day, Stella Morris is pleading with the Belmarsh authorities to hand over his warm winter clothing, as the heating system in Belmarsh prison is inoperative and they won't even give him his winter clothes to keep warm. That is the depth of the depravity of his incarceration. It is absolutely gut-wrenchingly, sickeningly, revoltingly inhumane. How dare the governor of Belmarsh preside over such an injustice? Her Majesty's job is to issue a prerogative writ of habeas corpus to the governor of Belmarsh prison. I have asked our Governor General to issue a writ of habeas corpus to have this man immediately released. This is unacceptable to any human being with a heart.
I love war crimes. I love war crimes. I'm gonna take you, Julian, because you exposed war crimes. I love war crimes. Let's go, Julian. Let's go, Julian. 175 years is not enough for the truth. I love national security.
Shut her up!
I love the ABC. I love the BBC. I love the Telegraph. The Telegraph tells the truth. That's my newspaper.
Okay, we've got a written submission here to Scott Morrison, folks. So if you'd like to put your signature on our written petition, just a little town hall petition we're sending to Scott Morrison directly. Come up here on the left-hand side of me is a petition. So please come and put your autograph on it for us. Thank you.
It's called marketing research.
It's called marketing research for Scotty from marketing.
Only
one decision! No extradition!